America's team, Dallas Cowboys. You either love them or hate them, but everybody can talk about them. And you're not given much of a choice because of the eyeballs that they bring on the product and the number of fans that they have all throughout the country. The networks are always going to make sure that they're featured, whether they frankly deserve to be from an off-the-field standpoint or not. It's just the business. There's something inherently easy to hate about the Cowboys if you're not a Cowboys fan. So surely a lot of people got great joy and satisfaction out of the disappointment the Cowboys had in 2017. And coming off of 2016 and Ezekiel Elliott eating like crazy and Dak Prescott as a rookie stepping in, filling in Tony Romo's shoes and looking like he could potentially be that guy, you're sitting there thinking maybe 2017 they could go even further. Kind of like a Seahawks type of thing where in year 2 that could be the year. But they didn't have the Legion Boom defense and they didn't have other things. And they also didn't have Pete Carroll as their head coach. They have Jason Garrett. So the delusions of grandeur were probably very unrealistic. But you could really sum up 2017 very simply for the Dallas Cowboys. It's not like it was a totally lost season. It wasn't like it was a totally terrible season. It just didn't result in a playoff appearance. Once Ezekiel Elliott was suspended for that 6 games and had to start serving it, their season was submarined. It was over. There was just no other way to put it other than that. Once Zeke was out, the team was done. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. And if it wasn't that, it's leaving a guy like Chaz Green or whoever it was out there to try and block Adrian Claiborne one-on-one when they played the Falcons, and we all know how that went. That was a disaster. So you have a Cowboys team that just had this great season in 2016, was this close to making it to the NFC Championship game. Next year, they lose the key cog in the wheel, their most valuable player in Ezekiel Elliott, and they end up falling a little short of the playoffs. It just lets you know how valuable Zeke is, even with the offensive line, even with the young quarterback, and even with this, and even with that. Even though they still technically had Des Bryant for whatever that's worth. Even though they still had Jason Witten for whatever that was worth. If they didn't have Zeke, it didn't matter. And I wouldn't expect 2018 to be much different. It will come down to very simply Ezekiel Elliott playing 16 games. If he does, watch out. And if he doesn't, also watch out. Now you look at this offseason for the Cowboys. Another offseason of some notable changes. The year before, it's Tony Romo retiring and joining the broadcast booth at CBS with Jim Nantz. This year, it's Jason Witten retiring and going to do Monday Night Football. It's the release of Des Bryant. So you're talking about guys that were key cogs of the wheel for the Cowboys for many years for a lot of mediocre football, if I might say so, are now gone. This is definitely a new-look Cowboys team. And then, if it's not enough that you release Des Bryant, Jason Witten retires, even though he could still play. Then you get the news about Travis Frederick and his illness, a key cog to the best offensive line in football. Now all of a sudden you have some worries about the interior of that offensive line if you're Dallas, which is not something you had expected. And hopefully this illness doesn't keep Travis Frederick away for too long, but it's hard to know at this point. So it's something you didn't really anticipate. It's just the curveball life can throw at you sometimes. In terms of the offseason, the Cowboys weren't all that particularly active, although they did a good job of keeping DeMarcus Lawrence in the fold. They bring in a guy like Allen Hurns, who's had some productive time in the past, but not a lot of major roster overhaul for a team, not surprisingly, that doesn't always do a good job of managing the salary cap. What did they do in the draft? Well, you bring in a guy like Leighton Vander Esch, bring in Connor Williams, or bring in Michael Gallup, and the Cowboys are hoping these are 3 guys that can contribute right away. Now, how much is Leighton Vander Esch going to play right away with Sean Lee and Jalen Smith there in the fold? That will be determined until the next Sean Lee injury, and then Vander Esch, I'm sure, will have a prominent role. Connor Williams is probably going to start on the interior of that line. How good is he going to be? Michael Gallup's been a guy that showed, I thought, pretty well for himself at times in the preseason. But you're talking about a guy you took in the 3rd round out of Colorado State. Is he going to be a guy right away that you can count on in big ways and big spots where you're really going to need him? The good thing for a guy like Michael Gallup is there's going to be opportunities because Dak's ultimately going to have somebody to throw to. He's going to have to throw to somebody at some point in time. Just can't have Zeke and Dak run 100% of the time. It's not the way the modern NFL works. But how much can you really count on this draft class? And Michael Gallup and Van Der Esch and Williams, I guess we'll find out. In terms of the strengths of this team, even with Travis Frederick being out, you've still got Tyron Smith, one of the best left tackles in football. You've still got Zach Martin, one of the best guards in football. Now, hopefully, if you've decided to kick Lyle Collins out to right tackle and keep him at one position and stay there, maybe he can hopefully start to play at a level many of us expected him to play at coming out of LSU. Throwing Connor Williams into the mix. Can he play like a guy that many people at one point in time thought was a first-round talent? Is guard the more natural fit for him? In general, though, those are still okay questions to have. This is still a really good offensive line, even without Travis Frederick. They're going to be a strength of this team once again. And as long as he is there and not suspended or not hurt or anything, Ezekiel Elliott is still a massive strength. He's a franchise player for them. He is their franchise player. He is their MVP. He is their difference maker, period. Any other names you want to throw out there, you can blow them. Zeke is the dude. How Zeke feeds and eats is how the Dallas Cowboys feed and eat, period. And I fully expect Zeke to come in year 3 being pissed off about what happened in year 2 and come in and completely wreck shit. And I also look at this Cowboys team. You talk about the fundamentals of the game and how you win games. If you can run the ball and you can stop teams from running the ball, you have a formula in place where you can win a lot of games. And even in a pass-happy league like today, that still holds true. Well, we know the Cowboys with Zeke can definitely run the football. That can't be questioned. But this was a team that was a little underrated in terms of their ability to stop the run last year. And with adding another young linebacker like Van Der Esch, if you've got him and Smith and Lee on the field at the same time, the defensive line maybe is just a tad bit underrated. This is a team that I expect to be able to stop the run relatively well again in 2018. So there are definitely things that point me in the direction of 2017 is a bit of an aberration. This team could be right back in the fold again in 2018. Where am I concerned about them, though? I look at the wide receiver group. Allen Hurns is nice, but not special. You've got like a Cole Beasley type, but what are you going to get out of a Michael Gallup? What are you getting out of Terrence Williams, really? You got a couple of guys, but it feels like they're more Jags than anything, just another guy. Do you have a star there, a potential star there? Do you have a difference maker? Do you have somebody that can be a true number one? Do you have somebody that you can really count on? Or do you just have a bunch of role players? Especially when you look at, you're not really sure how much they're going to get out of the tight end position. It really emphasizes my concern about this wide receiving group. Then I look at the defense and I look at the youth of the secondary. And there's talent there. There's speed and athleticism there with Byron Jones and Xavier Woods and so forth. But young secondaries can also get burned a lot. Young secondaries can have moments where they're really bad. And could that rear its ugly head for the Cowboys at some key times and some key moments and situations where they just can't afford that to be the case? But I think as much as anything else, the concern for me is going to be, what is Dak Prescott? Who is Dak Prescott, and who is he going to show himself to be? This is year 3 for him now. This is really where you have to start figuring out if he's just an average guy or he can be more than an average guy. Because to me, what I've seen the first 2 years indicates that he's just an average NFL starting quarterback. A guy you can win some games with. Maybe you would sometimes, occasionally win a game because of him. But is he really that dude that can put a team on his back? Is he really that type of dude that can lead you all the way to the Super Bowl and you can win a Lombardi trophy with? I have to admit, I have my severe concerns and reservations about it, especially when you look at the lack of overall playmakers and skill talent on the offensive side of the ball around him. If the Cowboys' defense was better, and that was their identity, was a Seahawks type of thing, where they played dominant defense and they ran the ball like crazy with Zeke being their version of beast mode Marshawn Lynch, then I'd be like, okay, it's not as important for Dak to be able to carry the team. He just needs to be able to make some plays sometimes. But you look long term, the Cowboys are going to have to figure out, is he really the guy, or are we going to have to explore another option? Is he the guy that you're going to want to tie 25, now probably 30+ million a damn year into? I don't know. They're going to need Dak to be the best Dak has been this year. And I just wonder how much better he can really be than what he's already been. In terms of the schedule for the Cowboys, I look at November as kind of a make or break it month for them. They host Tennessee, they go to Philly, they go to Atlanta, host Washington, host New Orleans. So you got a couple of divisional games there. You got 2 road games that look like they're really, really tough. Washington is no slouch, even if I don't think they're great. New Orleans was a divisional winner and a playoff team last year. Tennessee Titans, they were a playoff team last year. So that's that stretch of schedule right there that they need Dak to be at his best. They need Zeke to be there and be at his best. And if they can get through that stretch of schedule 3-2, maybe 4-1, then look out for the Cowboys. If not, then it could be another disappointing season that you've kind of grown used to with Jerry Jones calling the shots for the Cowboys. Overall, I think when you look at this team, they're in some ways a little bit worse, you think, but some of it could be like getting rid of Dez Bryant. It could be addition by subtraction because Dak's not trying to force him the ball so much. Dak isn't trying to sit there and placate to Dez and his ego and trying to make sure that he gets the alleged number 1 wide receiver involved. If you've got Zeke and you can run the ball, minimize the pressure on Dak, he can make some plays, and your defense shows a little bit of improvement. I think this is a good Cowboys team. I don't think they're a great Cowboys team, but I do think they're good enough to potentially slide into the wild card round of the playoffs and maybe give the Eagles a little bit of a challenge there in the NFC East. So for me, right now, I'd probably put my money on the Cowboys being 10-6, finishing second in the division, and perhaps being the 5 or 6 seed in the NFC playoffs.